Okay, so there's this question that every Berserk fan has asked at least once, usually at like 2 AM staring at the ceiling emotionally unwell. The question is, what if Griffith was never imprisoned? What if the torture never happened? What if he never spent a year in that dungeon getting his tongue cut out, his tendons severed, reduced to a broken thing that couldn't even speak? Would he still have done it? Would he still have sacrificed everyone he loved to gain unimaginable power? Would the eclipse have happened at all? And the comforting answer, the one a lot of fans really want to believe, is no, the torture broke him. The torture is what made him do it. If Griffith had been left alone, he'd have gotten his kingdom the normal way, married Charlotte, ruled happily ever after, and Guts and Casca would be raising kids somewhere. The torture is the villain. The dungeon is the thing that turned a good man bad. And I'm here to ruin that for you, because I don't think that's true. I think Griffith was always heading towards that moment, and the torture just changed the paperwork. Let's get into why, and I promise it's gonna make you a little sick by the end. Good, that's Berserk. So let's actually establish who Griffith is before any of the bad stuff happens, because this is where everyone's reading goes soft. People remember Griffith as this charismatic dreamer, this beautiful idealist who just wanted his own kingdom. And they go, oh, he had a dream, and yeah, he did. But go back and actually look at how he pursued that dream from day one, before the dungeon, before the betrayal, before any of it. Griffith was already ruthless. Griffith was already willing to sacrifice his own men by the dozens. There's a moment early on, and people gloss right over this, where a young boy in the Band of the Hawk idolizes Griffith, looks up to him completely, and Griffith uses that boy, sends him to his death as a tool, and barely blinks. He seduces nobles, he assassinates political obstacles, he sends a literal child to murder someone. This is pre-torture Griffith. This is the guy fans want to believe was pure. And here's the line that defines him, the one that should have been the warning the whole time. Griffith tells Guts essentially that a true friend and a real friend and equal is someone who has their own dream, not someone who serves yours. Someone who would never bow to you, who chases their own thing, who stands beside you as a rival, not below you as a follower. To Griffith, everyone who follows his dream is by definition not his friend. They're tools. Useful, even beloved tools, but tools. The only person in the entire world Griffith ever considered an equal, the only person he ever saw as a real friend, was Guts. The one man who had his own dream, the man who didn't bow. The one person Griffith loved was the only person his philosophy couldn't let him keep. Okay, so now let's actually run the experiment. Let's say the torture never happens. Griffith doesn't get imprisoned. Well, the thing that triggers his actual fall, the inciting incident, is that Guts leaves. Guts walks away from the Band of the Hawk to find his own dream, his own reason to live, instead of living inside Griffith's dream. And that rejection is what sends Griffith spiraling. He can't process it. The one equal he had, the one friend, chose to leave him. And in his grief and confusion, he sleeps with Princess Charlotte, gets caught, and that's what lands him in the dungeon. So even in the real timeline, the torture isn't the root cause. The root cause, it's Guts leaving. The torture is downstream of that. The dungeon is just the place Griffith ended up because he'd already lost the one thing that anchored him. So in our no torture timeline, Guts still leaves. That's the part people forget. The what if doesn't undo Guts walking out unless you want to rewrite the entire character, in which case you're not asking about Berserk anymore. You're asking about a different anime. Guts was always gonna leave because Guts needed to become his own man. That's his whole arc. So Griffith, torture or not, is still gonna get hit with the single thing that breaks him. The realization that the only person he ever considered an equal looked at the dream and said, "This isn't enough for me. You're not enough for me," and walked off into the snow. And here's the thing about Griffith's psychology that makes this unrecoverable. Griffith cannot stand being ordinary. He cannot stand the idea that all the bodies he stepped over, all the men he sacrificed, all the blood on his hands might have been for nothing. That he might just be a normal man with a big ego and a pile of corpses behind him. His entire self-worth is welded to the belief that he is special, that he is destined, that the dream justifies everything. And the moment Guts leaves, that belief cracks. Because if even Guts, his one equal, doesn't believe in him enough to stay, then maybe he's not the chosen one. Maybe he's just a guy, and that to Griffith is a fate worse than death. Now here's where the supernatural machinery of Berserk comes in, and this is the part that really kills the cozy "he'd have been fine" theory. The eclipse, the sacrifice, the whole transformation into Femto, that wasn't some random reward for being sad. It was foretold. Griffith carries the Crimson Behelit, the egg of the king, basically from the beginning. The Behelit is a thing that activates when its owner hits the absolute bottom of despair, when they're at the lowest point point a human being can reach, and they make a choice. The God Hand does not show up because you got tortured. They show up because you've hit rock bottom and you're standing at a crossroads between accepting your humanity and ordinary suffering or sacrificing everything for power. The Behelit was always going to activate. The only question was what the bottom looked like when Griffith got there. The torture is just the flavor of rock bottom we got in the actual story. It's the specific staircase he fell down. But Griffith was a man built to reach rock bottom one way or another because his entire identity was a bet on being more than human, and the universe of Berserk is specifically designed to call that bet. Causality in Berserk is a real physical force. There's a literal idea of evil pulling strings, arranging events so that the chosen ones reach their God Hand moment. The story is telling you flat out that this wasn't a freak accident of one bad year in a dungeon. This was the gravity of the world bending towards an outcome that was coming no matter what. So picture it. No torture, Griffith's healthy, beautiful, whole, Guts leaves, Griffith spirals, maybe slower, maybe over years instead of one brutal night. Maybe he gets his kingdom the legitimate way and finds, sitting on his throne, that the hollow feeling never goes away. Because the one person whose respect actually meant something to him is gone, and a kingdom full of people who bow to him is a kingdom full of people who, by his own definition, were never his friends. He'd be surrounded by worshippers and completely cosmically alone, and the Behelit would be sitting right there in his pocket, waiting, patient, and one day, at his own private rock bottom, a quieter one, a lonelier one, but a rock bottom all the same, it opened its eyes. Now, let me be fair, because I'm not gonna pretend the other side has nothing. There's a strong case that the specific horror of the eclipse needed the torture to happen, because the version of Griffith who sacrifices the hawks isn't just a man in despair. He's a man who's been physically destroyed, who's been forced to confront his body as a ruined, useless thing, who tried to crawl towards his dream with a knife in his hand and couldn't even do that. The torture stripped away every other path. A healthy, free Griffith always has another option. Try again, rebuild, find another way up. The tortured Griffith has nothing left, no body, no voice, no future, and that total absence of any other door is what makes the sacrifice feel inevitable in the moment. So you could argue, without the torture, Griffith always has an escape hatch, and a man with an escape hatch doesn't open the Behelit. And that's a real point. I won't pretend it isn't. But here's why I still don't buy that it saves him. Because it assumes Griffith wants an ordinary escape hatch, and that's the one thing he fundamentally does not. A normal man with another path takes it, but Griffith already told us to Guts' face that in ordinary life, a life without their dream isn't a life he's willing to live. He'd rather not exist than be common. So even handed every escape hatch in the world, the man's own philosophy slams them all shut, because every one of them leads to you're just a regular guy now, and that's the one outcome his soul refuses to accept. The torture did not give Griffith his ambition, or even his ruthlessness, or his desperate total need to be more than human. He walked in the door with all of that. The dungeon just took away the props so we could see it naked. So here's where I land. The torture didn't make Griffith fall. The torture revealed how far he was always willing to go. It showed us the shape of a thing that was already there. The willingness that lived in him from the moment that he sent that little boy to die without flinching. Griffith was a man who decided long before any dungeon that his dream was worth any price, including people. The story just keeps raising the price until it finally named the number out loud. Everyone. And on some level, the most horrifying read of all is that a part of Griffith was almost relieved to be handed a reason. A bottom low enough to justify the thing he might have always been reaching for. That's the gut punch of Berserk. It's not a good man got broken, it's a man showed you exactly who he was, slowly, the whole time, and you kept hoping you were wrong. The torture is the part that lets fans off the hook. It lets them say that's what did it. That external evil, that one cruel year. But take it away, and Griffith still standing there with a Behelit in his pocket and a hole in his chest where his one friend used to be. And the God Hand still has all the time in the world to wait. So tell me I'm wrong in the comments. Make the case that a free Griffith stays good, because I want to believe it too, and I can't get there. Thanks for watching the video. If you have any anime characters or anime topics you'd like me to analyze, drop them down in the comments below. You already know. JV out!